The Rangers then throw a ton of power at these monsters. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Iguana. Happy Halloween to you, and welcome to another Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review. Today I'm taking my 2 pendants of life and delving into Keeper's Temple, trying to recover the lost good Halloween episode of Dino SuperCharge. Let's take a look at the 17th episode of Dino SuperCharge, Worgworld. We start with a really hectic scene aboard Sledge 1. Snide is heading to Solitary to finally take care of Heckle when Poisandra stops him. Helping to get Heckle out of Solitary helps Snide just as much as it did Heckle, so it's time to make with that secret that he promised her. He tells her, quietly, and she gets really excited and runs off. You know, this is really more of a Steps of Knowledge type thing than a Temple Games type thing, so I think I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Then the alarm goes off because Heckle escaped. Somehow, Snide destroys the 2 spike balls that had been guarding him, but when Wrench asks if he should go after Heckle, Snide says to just let him go. This really doesn't make any sense. If you cared enough about Heckle to keep him locked up, why not go after him now? As per the usual lately, the Rangers aren't doing anything nearly as interesting as that. It's the debut of a new exhibit at the museum, Worg, the robot caveman. But it is not going well. Hardly anyone seems to care, and even when they do, it goes badly. After Worg nearly, literally almost kills a woman, Kendall pulls the plug. But Coda, who's Worg's biggest fan for obvious reasons, has his own idea. In the cafe, Ivan thinks that Coda is having a great day on the grill. But surprise, it's Worg, who Coda has dressed up like him and somehow taught how to use the grill. Just how smart is this thing, anyway? But when Ivan says that Worg nearly gave him a heart attack, oops, don't say that word. The word attack, which Coda repeated into the headset accidentally, started to make Worg throw tomatoes at everyone. When Kendall gets hit, she gets so angry that the smear on her face actually moves an inch to the left by the time she gets to the kitchen. She orders Coda to put Worg away in storage. Shelby and Riley head out to take down the sign, and Tyler is leaving to get more tomatoes. But then 2 strange cloaked figures show up. Shelby, in a rather tongue-in-cheek line, asks whether it's Halloween or not. When the white one, Screech, pulls out a trumpet, Riley instantly covers his ears, as he hates trumpet music. Good thing, as it turns out, because this trumpet's music turns anyone who hears it into a zombie, instantly applying a ton of eye black to their face, and also turning the sky dark blue somehow. Riley's arms get yanked down, so he hears the music and changes as well. The zombies enter the cafe and start chasing Coda, who can't hear the music because of Worg's headset. Chase enters, and his headphones block out the music as well, but he takes them off, and he changes. They chase Coda out in front of the museum and get him surrounded, but he manages to help the other Rangers block out the music. He and Chase, the only 2 who are able to use their arms, attack Screech and the other monster, Conduct Drone. Kendall says his name later in the episode, but I'm not sure how she learned it because that's the only time it's mentioned. With the civilians freed and retreated, the Rangers morph. We then get something that I didn't even realize that we'd been missing, but I love them for finally including. We get an original footage Ranger fight in front of the museum. Spoilers! This is going in the pros. However, it's not really a successful fight. The Rangers get the trumpet away from the monsters for a bit, but the monsters get it right back and they retreat. On Sledge 1, they explain to Arcanon that the Rangers would not attack the civilians. Snide sees this as his chance to make himself useful, saying that he'll use that weakness to destroy the Rangers. However, Arcanon instead decides to punish him for his earlier laziness, kicking him off the ship for letting Heckle escape. Kendall realizes that there's a special frequency inside the music that's causing the mind control. Really, this is probably Conductrone's contribution. She also realizes that it just so happens, and boy do I hate the use of those words in a plot, that Worg's headset operates on the same frequency and thus blocks it out. Chase's headphones also block out the music, but they also block out everything else, so they need to make more of the headset so that they're able to communicate with each other. We get a quick bit of character development for Coda, who obviously isn't much help making the headsets, so he's putting Worg away in the cafe. He tells Worg how he reminds him of his caveman friends, and how he's still not really used to living in the modern world. It would have been a really nice bit of character development if he weren't talking to what's basically a Disney animatronic. Worg does sadly say his name as he leaves the cafe, but this is never followed up on. The Rangers manage to get 4 new headsets built, but then the monsters attack again, now broadcasting the music to the entire city. Amber Beach is now filled with zombies. Quick, somebody get Frank West on the phone. Hey, he's covered wars, you know. Alright, sadly he's getting ready for Christmas in Willamette, so instead the 5 Rangers take the headsets and go head to the music. The zombies block off several of the Rangers' paths and eventually pin them in an alley, making them debate whether or not to fight them. Coda runs off and calls Worg, who comes running to the scene. Just as the other Rangers decide that they have to fight the civilian zombies to protect their energems, Worg shows up, distracting the zombies and running off, with the zombies chasing him because of reasons. So now it's Vivix, which the Rangers are much happier to fight, morphing to do so. But you don't need 5 Rangers to fight a pack of Vivix, so Tyler and Shelby head for the music. Shelby points out that the music is coming from that machine! That would be a record player, Shelby. Us geriatrics used to listen to them in the days before CDs. Thanks for making me feel old, Power Rangers. The Rangers reunite and try the Dino Spike, which is actually something we hadn't seen in a while. But Conductrone shows an ability to conduct objects, and he breaks the Dino Spike apart. This is an ability that is so useful that he didn't use it at any point before this, and he won't use it at any point after this. So anyway, Xenowing just muscles his way in and slams the record player on the ground, with Tyler snapping the vinyl in half for good measure. So Arcanon arrives on the scene, and even though Screech still has his trumpet, you know how Arcanon feels when a plan fails once. He absorbs some power from the Dark Energem and transforms, mainly just his face mutating, but he does gain power. He rains fire from the sky. That's when Ivan shows up, and he uses a new attack, Terra Superbolt, to hold the 3 monsters in place. The Rangers then throw a ton of power at these monsters. Ivan's Lightning Final Strike, Xenowing's Silver Prism Slash, and the Core 5 Rangers' Victory Final Strike, and it does absolutely nothing. Arcanon calls the Magna Beam down on himself. Tyler summons the Titanozord, with Xenowing standing right next to him, and the Rangers form the Ultrazord, with Coda, of course, getting the Focus Episode sword. The Rangers attack Arcanon 3 times, but don't even manage to move him, and then he blasts them back hard. Xenowing says that playtime is over, and the Rangers use the Plasma Blast Final Strike. Not sure why they went with this one instead of the Titano Cannon, which is literally the power of all 10 Energems, but this got the job done. Arcanon was not destroyed, however, maybe because of these 3 otherwise unexplained lights that formed right in front of him first. In the forest, and it's really a forest this time, a severely weakened Arcanon is crawling towards the Dark Energem case when a familiar-looking foot steps down on it first. Ladies and gentlemen, Sledge is back. No explanation just yet for how Sledge is back, but he wants his money. Arcanon is completely willing to pay him in space bullion, but Sledge is changing the deal because, you know, gee, this Dark Energem looks really good in my special Energem gun. Arcanon is joined by Singe and the 2 music monsters, but Sledge is joined by his crew And Snide. You know, sometimes punishing a monster for laziness can backfire on you. Sledge's crew destroys Arcanons, with Heckle witnessing the whole thing and running away. Back at the museum, Worg is now much more popular, despite nothing about him changing, and he and Coda are leading a Caveman fitness class, which is an idea that they may have just ripped off from a beef jerky commercial. Let's dig up some super... Hey! You guys remember this, don't you? Trick or treat for super fossils? Episode 17, Worgworld. Pros, zombie scenes were actually kind of spooky, rangers at the museum, and the villains are keeping the show interesting. Cons, Worg was utterly unnecessary to the story, wasted chance for Coda development, and a ton of missed potential. I was hoping this episode would be a treat, but I got tricked. Worgworld gets 2 super fossils out of 5. Let's start with the treats before we get to the tricks. In my notes, I actually wrote down plus 0.5 next to my note about there being an original Ranger fight scene in front of the museum. For most of this show, the Amber Beach Museum has felt oddly disconnected from the Power Rangers stuff. Having an original Ranger fight scene there really helped it establish it as part of the rest of Amber Beach, and as that being where the Power Rangers are. In a sad trend of the past few episodes, it's the villains that have been keeping things interesting. Arcanon's short-sightedness actually works as a character flaw. He's impatient and bypasses good opportunities because he doesn't want to have to wait. He couldn't get over his annoyance with Snide enough to keep him around, and he actually tapped into an unstable energy source instead of giving another shot to turning everybody in Amber Beach into zombies, which is a plan that was working. And hey, Sledge is back! I do remember that he didn't really amount to all that much in his first run, but it's a refreshing change in its own right. I do kind of wish that we had gotten to see Sledge and Arcanon work against each other for a little while, but I guess there's only one ship. It's a shame that Arcanon came to Earth in the VW Bug version of Spaceship Earth. And on this weekend right before Halloween, the zombie scenes in this episode actually worked really well. I joked about the eye black and the camera filter, but those really did help and added to the scenes. Coda getting chased around inside the cafe and surrounded outside of it were reminiscent of zombie films. They actually did that stuff well. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is called a segue. There was a preview clip released for this episode a few days ago, as they've been doing every week, and the preview clip this week was basically the good part. The Worg stuff is focused on way more than the zombies, and they were the actual interesting part of the episode. Worg barely factored into the plot at all. Seriously, Worg gives us one interesting character development monologue for Coda, which he could have just as easily had without Worg in the story. The headsets, which Kendall could have just developed anyway and spared us another just so happens in the story. And distracting the zombies, which didn't make sense anyway, and the Rangers could have dealt with a number of different ways. They could have gone a different direction, they could have morphed and jumped over the zombies, or they could have just taken the Terrazord and flown directly to the record player. Honestly, I would probably give this episode a 5.5 out of 5 if it just cut Worg out entirely or greatly reduced his role, maybe just make him the things the Rangers were doing when the episode started, and focused on the Rangers dealing with a city full of zombies without hurting them. They said that Amber Beach was full of zombies. Show us some hordes! Make that dilemma about whether or not the Rangers have to fight them really have some serious meaning. But no, instead the zombies are just another minor inconvenience, keeping them from their real situation of figuring out their wacky robot friend. You know, the Rangers treating their duties like more of an inconvenience, keeping them from the real interest in their normal lives. I might be coming back to this point in a few more weeks. Stay tuned. I've already mentioned Coda's character development monologue, but it really was wasted. First of all, it was a monologue, besides the fact that he was talking to a robot, I guess. So he was basically talking to himself. The other Rangers don't get to hear this, we don't get to see them react to it, and we don't get character growth from them out of it either. And also, it was just never touched on again after this. This scene was really more about why does Kota care so much about the robot than actually adding layers to his character. So, how many more weeks can I say, well, something interesting happened right near the end of the episode, so maybe next week things are going to pick up? Well, I guess one more week, because we get Sledge back right at the end of the episode, so let's see if next week things pick up. Let's take a look at the 18th episode of Dino SuperCharge, really the penultimate episode before the two-part finale, The Rangers Rock! No, that wasn't a statement, that's the name of the episode. A new monster attacks the Rangers, turning most of them to stone. Shelby must work with Keeper to create a new Zord, the only plan that can save her friends. A new Zord? Tyranno, Stego, Para, Raptor, Tricera, Terra, Ankylo, Pachy, Plesio, Titano. There's really only one Zord left, isn't there, heroes? That's going to do it for this special Halloween Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review. Thank you guys so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. Leave your thoughts on this episode in the comments below. And for fun, also let me know what you're dressing up as for Halloween this year. And make sure to subscribe to the channel to see all the geekiness whenever I post it. And if you happen to have a couple of bucks you need something to do with, you can head to my channel page and click that blue support button, and I'd really appreciate it. And as always, the choices are yours, and yours alone, and may the power protect you. Chase enters, and his, see? Ta-da! With the civilians freed and retreated, the Rangers morph. With the civilians freed and retreated, the Rangers morph. This is probably Conduct Drone's contribution. She's able to, oh no, she's not able to block it out. Kendall realizes that there's a frequency inside the music that's causing the mind control. This is probably Conduct Drone's contribution. Don't. Kendall realizes that it's a frequency inside the music that's causing the mind control. Really, this is probably Conduct Drone's contribution. She also realizes that... so now it's Vivix with no explanation just yet for how it's... At the cafe, Worg is now more popular, despite nothing about him changing, and he and Kota are leading a cave... He wasn't willing to be patient with Snide, just kicking him off the ship in his first major failure, and completely ad-libbing this tape and screwing up. In a sad trend of the past few episodes, it's been the villains that have been keeping things interesting. You know, Arcanon's short-sightedness actually works as a character flaw. He's impatient, he's not willing to wait for success, he's... farts! I joked about the eye black and the dark camera filter, but they did work to really good effect. The Rangers could have gone a different direction, they could have morphed and just jumped over the zombies, or they could have done a third thing, which I forgot because farts. The headsets thing, which Kendall could have just invented those anyway and spared us another just so happens in this story, and the farts. Seriously, Worg gives us one interesting character development monologue for Kota, which he... going on tilt. Seriously, Worg gives us one interesting character development monologue for Kota, which he could have just as easily had without it. They could have gone a different direction. They could have morphed and just jumped over the zombies. Ah! So the other Rangers don't get to react to this, and we don't get development for them. And I farted. But before that, I had forgotten the lines. Okay. This scene really just came off as more of a, why does Kota care farts?